We'll call the city council meeting to order. It's 6 o'clock. Roll call.
Mayor Reese,
Here.
Councilmember Osk,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Schultes,
Here.
Fagerly,
Here.
Osmus,
Here.
Butterfield,
Here.
and O'Brien.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Schultes,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
and Osk.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 noes.
That passes. Consent items. I'll call for Renee, the city clerk.
For your consideration today, Mr. Mayor and council members, I have the city council minutes of July 15th, 2024, the accounts payable report of 7/11 through 7/23 of '24, and West Central Ducks Unlimited lawful gambling application. And there is no additional information.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, roll call.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Schultes,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Osk,
Aye.
and Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 noes.
That passes. I'll assume we don't have anybody for the open forum. Okay. We'll go to regular business, capital improvement plan. City Administrator Valiant.
Good evening, council. Tonight in front of you, you have the 5-year proposed, just to give you an overview of the whole book that you have received. The first pages are the 5-year capital improvement plan. That plant there. But the following page after the green one then will be each consecutive year following that. So you'll have a further big breakdown of each year. And then after that, what we've started this year is providing more of a complete packet as to what each project is and why the directors of the departments feel that this is an obligation that we should be having over the next 5 years. So each tab after that, you will have, if there's a cost for the next 5 years, you will have one sheet for each year that that project is going forward, or if it's just a single year. And with that, then I will turn it over for Mr. Odens to explain where we are at and how we will go forward then with this. Any questions first? Audrey?
The first page, if you would just go through prior years committed, so that money's
Yeah,
still there.
that's what Mr. Odens will go through
He's
right
going to
now.
go through that? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
You're ahead of me again. You're always a step ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So yeah, the first we'll want to draw your attention to the 25 through 29 capital improvement plan that's in the front of your binder. And as Councilmember Nelson had alluded to, the prior year committed CIP, per city charter, we keep money for 3 years after they're allocated for CIP programs. So the prior year committed CIP column would be for projects approved from 2022, 2023, and then for those 2 years. And then we also included the 2024 column as a standalone column. So Just a real quick run through them. At the auditorium, we have electrical remodel, which is a safety concern. There's the old wiring at the auditorium, and also the roof, gutter fascia, and tuck pointing. So at the auditorium, there's a $640,000 sitting out there committed towards the improvements there. The next item is a Blue Line Arena installation. That number, original ask appropriation was $350,000. There were council resolutions and council action to reallocate some of that money towards other civic center projects. I believe in this case, it was a civic center roof project. And we could flip over to the next page. It's a Park and Rec bike and walking trail grants for $62,500. And that is the city cost or the city portion of a grant along with the DNR. And that is for the trailhead improvements at the Glacial Lake State Trail for the total project cost of $250,000. But the city portion is $62,500. And if we go to the next page, we do have one, or in the police department, there's a secure garage. This would be a joint venture with Candy, Ohio County and the Sheriff's Office. It was committed $50,000 to a secure garage out there. You'll see that also is in the CIP for 2025. The reason for that is the price may have changed since the last quote, and I believe that administrators are still working on getting a better price for that secure garage as well, or along with the police and the sheriff's offices. The international dump truck, plow truck, that number is a hard cost. It's a known cost. It's on order. We ordered 2 of them. One of them we're paying cash. It was actually a 2022 CIP allocation, and then we also ordered one that we paid for with the equipment certificate with our 2024 bond issuance. So we just have not taken delivery upon that vehicle yet, so that is still coming this fall, hopefully. Public Works also has some signal pole painting. That figure, I believe that dollar amount was larger, but there were some funds reallocated. That's why you see an exact dollar amount there. There were some funds reallocated out of that project. And that concludes all of the prior year committed CIP. So all of those dollars are sitting in our capital improvement fund. Those projects just have not yet, or we haven't written yet. The next column over is the 2024, and this one's going to have, you'll see the red numbers as well as the black numbers. The red numbers were the original asks in the capital improvement program, but they were pushed off or not approved in the 2024 budget. So you'll see various projects that have been pushed off, and then they either were reallocated to the future or abandoned altogether. The black numbers are still potentially in progress for this year. There's quite a few projects, and I don't know if we need to run through each of those line by line. If you need any other information, we can certainly do that. One thing I do want to draw out, though, as we move forward, in the 2024 projects, it was approximately $17 million total. That's including all of our funding sources. Of that, the cash and the community investment fund is $1.1 million. The other funds came from, we got public safety dollars from the state of Minnesota. We bonded. That's where the significant portion of our streets come from our bonding as well as our equipment. We had some American Rescue Plan and ARPA dollars that was allocated in 2024. We had some local option sales tax money. That's going to be for our stormwater improvements, and then also the stormwater improvements as part of our road project. We did receive $500,000 in grant money for our bike path on the 19th Avenue trail that is being constructed as we speak, actually. And then there's also about $2.7 million out of the wastewater treatment fund. That's going to be for various projects as well as our street improvement program. But the cash portion was about $1.1 million between the general fund and the community investment fund contributions. So looking at 2025, did you want to go line by line, department by department, or what would be the council's wishes on that? Let's start going through this.
Well,
Julie?
I would at least like to talk about the auditorium and what we're going to do and what's the plan.
I would agree.
Yeah. I
Well,
agree on that,
that's
too.
your discussion.
I had the same reservation. I went through this afternoon, and I had the same reservation, and I sat with Leslie for a while and talked about it.
Okay.
Would you like to go line by line in 2025 first and understand what's in 2025 and then go back to what is available for transferring funding?
Yeah, let's do that, because then we get a better picture.
Mayor, Audrey?
Yes, Audrey?
Just a clarification. I know this happened before, that we weren't aware that some funds, you talked about the 3-year time frame, and that the mayor transferred it into the budget because that time frame was done, without having a discussion about whether we wanted to keep the funds available for that project. So do we have any of that this year, that there's a plan to, things that were allocated and are in that prior years committed, that would be automatically available to be transferred?
I guess
No.
that'd be,
This would not be automatic. Well, it's council's decision no matter what.
I
to-
understand that.
So
but it
what
was-
you're seeing,
Yep,
what you're seeing in prior years committed is what we know that is still left from those back 3 years.
right.
So.
And what
you
you're
can-
saying is it's
so you
council's
can-
decision
If you,
what to
we
do.
haven't taken anything off.
Okay,
And that's the council's decision if you want to move any of these funds to something else, like Councilman Osmus said about the discussion on the auditorium. That's, all of this is up for council to move or
okay.
whatever you
Thank
want to do. So let's go line by line through 2025, so you know what's all in 2025 for expenses, future expenses, and then we can discuss if we want to move funding over to 2025 for projects. That way, that'll give us a better understanding of what and where the funding source is coming from.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Last year, we came up with a figure that we decided that that's it. We don't, that's all we can spend on CIP. We aren't that far yet in this process, are we?
Nope.
Okay,
That's why we need to know your input here tonight, and we do have an idea, but we're not going to give you that yet. I want you guys to be able to decide what you need and that, because even last year, what we had said, there was still additions to that, what the council wanted.
but we can't do the same thing we did last year, right?
Which was,
Take
It's
the
not
money
our
from the
choice that
other-
you do that.
What's that?
It's not our choice that you do that,
No,
but it's still
the
council
money-
decision.
We have drawn down that money, so I think that's important for us to know. We talked about that being kind of a one-time.
Yeah, it'll be,
solution.
those are, I think you're ahead of the game here, too. Those are still going to be ongoing discussions. Even tonight, we'll have more of that discussion after we get to the final ideas, too.
Okay, Justin?
Yeah, just some clarity on what it is you're looking for from us tonight, then. You're looking for some input, you're looking for us to evaluate and prioritize projects?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that would be a
Yeah.
fair statement to
I
see
mean-
councils. This is what the departments have submitted for their 2025 and beyond requests. And then now we're looking at council's direction to authorize some of them, authorize all of them, or none of them, or anywhere in between.
Sure.
This is just a compilation of all the department requests, and I thank the department directors for putting all together some of them have pictures in there of some of the work that he's done, so.
So at the bottom line, we're coming up short by 2.5 million.
That is the funding gap currently.
Okay.
So is the point of tonight to close the funding gap?
That would be a good goal, yes.
Yep.
But, okay.
Julie's next.
I was, each one of them, I'm getting to exactly where I'm thinking. As far as, I know that Audrey was ahead, but we then need, also, before we can say, okay, let's cut this, because this is more important, you need to know where the funding sources are coming from, and like Audrey was saying, we are at, last year, we're at that point where I believe the League of Minnesota Cities, or it says we can't take any more from the funds that we tapped last year, or what's acceptable to have in our coffers. That we tapped into that, yeah.
Audrey?
We didn't have cash left, that's what you're referring to, but we tapped into our street fund that was there last year. That's what I was referring to.
Okay.
We did that last year, and we can't do it again. And then I just want to acknowledge, this is the first time, I mean, this was laying on the table, so whether we can get there tonight or not, I don't know.
I guess we don't expect you to get there tonight because, yes, this is your first look. So that's why I wanted to go through this line by line, and then after that, we come up with, if you want,
Okay, without getting too far in the weeds, for us to just be able to see the overview.
yeah, I think it's important, and it's important to your directors that they know that you have taken a look at this, and then we have to decide what is not going to be done at some point in time. So I wonder if this tonight isn't just the first step, and then this gives you an overview, and then we come up with the number that, well, I think we know what the number is that we're comfortable with.
Staff has been working hard on this, and it was just within the last hour and a half that
I got this, the
it was
5-year
put
done.
together. And if you have the opportunity later on to go through all the department heads, supervisors' notes, it's very good, very well done. It explains it. So, Tom?
When do we find out what we get for local government aid?
We already have that
There's a,
information. I think that,
yeah, the final certification has not come out yet, but it's very similar to last year. There was an estimate done, I think, at the end of the year. It's pretty close to last year, though, a little bit of an increase,
yeah,
but not the jump that it was from 23 to 24,
So about same as last year.
roughly.
Which was,
Just over 6 million,
So 6 million.
really
Safe
round
side.
numbers. Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Okay, Leslie, or who's going to run down
Tom
each
will.
item for 05?
Yeah, we
25.
can start with the airport, and as we go along, I can kind of lean on directors from their departments. And I might be, when we start off with the airport, a couple of these in here, this would be the city portion of the costs. There are some federal or other funding sources that would be a match. So I want to lean on Operations Director Box on that. But there'd be a T hangar design and construction. I think that's a placeholder, not necessarily for sure 2025 request.
Yep, so actually in your books, you'll actually see a separate airport CIP. It should be the first page in, second page in after the airport tab. So you'll see the future outlook of the municipal airport, and this is something that we work with the airport supervisor, the FAA, and MnDOT to put together an annual CIP. So really, these are placeholders, if they can be more than that, but they're good ideas or projects that we need to have at the airport, and we've gotten nods from the state and the FAA to keep pushing forward with those, so that's why you see an aggressive, especially from 25 and beyond. The biggest project that the council or the city will be seeing is runway 1331, which is the main tarmac at the airport with a edge lighting, lighting being replaced. And then as you move into 26, well, I'll stop, I'll just talk about 25, but what I want to have the realization is that these are hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of projects, if not millions, when the FAA is contributing 90 to upwards of 95% of those projects. The city ask is that 5 or 2.5%. So taking advantage of those federal funds is really advantageous, as well as we're getting to the point where the airport is, it's showing its age. It's 20-plus years old, and it's just time to start seeing, the council and the city is going to start seeing those improvement requests come in for maintenance of the airport. Specifically for the edgeway, the runway lighting, which is the 2025 project. That will actually result in airport closure for upwards of 30 days. We can still schedule flights to come in and out, but the lighting is to a point where it cannot be replaced as efficiently, as effectively as it was when it was installed. So this is a new project that we've got the FAA's attention on, and we're putting a placeholder in there for 2025. And that's the city contribution of $45,400. That has the potential to actually increase to decrease from 5% to 2.5%, but we are still planning for the 5% increase, or 5% local share.
I know you're talking about 2025, but I'm also looking ahead and seeing how we would spread things out. But what is the big jump to 246,000 in 2028?
So 2028 specifically is an actual a mill and overlay or reclamation of the runway itself. So that's why you're seeing such approximately a $4.9 million project. The city's contribution would be 5% of that, which is $246,400. So we're just putting placeholders and planning for it at this stage. But again, it's the original runway. It's on schedule to be replaced for maintenance.
So just wondering how your thinking process is going when you're laying this out. So because we know of that huge expense that'll come up in 2028, are we thinking then we do just a little bit less on roads to cover that? What's the
thought process as
projection?
of right now, it is a transfer from general fund to the CIP cash to pay for that, the local share of that project.
Mike?
And that's a placeholder in your 5-year lookout, as well as the individual 2028 in that year.
We've got this new golf course coming in. There's obviously going to be a lot of private airplanes, jets flying in there. Are they going to be paying extra to the city for that, or how is all that going to work?
Just be if there's any rents, there's rents that we would collect. Otherwise, they contract with, if there's private hangars out there, they could potentially rent those. Otherwise, we do have taxiway rent or land, paper rent. But
And
Do we
they would
sell-
not directly be contributing.
Do we sell the fuel?
Yes, we sell fuel.
Oasis Air sells the fuel. The city collects a percentage of that fuel sale. In 2024, we received 22 or 23 cents a gallon off of every fuel sale. So round number, about $25,000 a year is what we bring in for fuel sales.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Additional in airport, you'll see, which is not going to be one, that's going to be different from the rest, is the drainage work in the private hangar area. That is a 100% city project. This is a request for continued efforts to improve the drainage situation at the airport. If the council recalls, last year, the council approved a drainage project on the southwest corner of private hangars. That project, I will say, is 99% complete. We have done The last couple of weeks, did our punch list walkthrough with the contractor, with the engineer, but water is flowing. It's working as it's supposed to. But if the council is aware, or if you're not aware, that we do have continued drainage issues at the airport just because of such a thick clay base, and the elevation, well, there isn't any, it's non-existent, so it's tough to get water to move out of the airport. So this is just continued improvements for drainage around in the private hangar areas. There is a separate drainage system that encompasses the runway and taxiways itself, and that was done when the airport was constructed.
Tom?
There's that property right next to it, we talked about it in the past. Did anything ever happen with that?
It was sold.
What?
It was sold.
Okay.
Yep. The property directly to the east on Highway 40, we had authorization to bid up to a certain amount, and we were outbid.
Okay.
It
Considerably
far ex-
outbid.
Far exceeded our bid.
Well, I just know that there was with the previous owner, he was, talked about the easement right and, you know, the water issue on where he goes in and out. And so I didn't know if, that got all tied in too.
Yeah, we can look at
Okay.
it.
No, but if it's sold, this, you know, it'll
Yeah.
be their problem, so.
Yeah, there is an easement between the highway and their property that is
Okay.
owned by the city, and we do have to manage some of the trees in that area of the flight path, but the property, it's private property
Okay.
itself, yep. Mr. Mayor, and if that's all right, I will pause there if there are any other questions on airport asks.
Any questions on the airport? Okay, who's next?
I could continue on.
All right.
Auditorium, the electrical remodel and safety concern, you'll see that it's $60,000, and you'll also notice that there's $40,000 in there as prior committed, so the $60,000 would not be all new. We could apply the prior committed to the electrical costs, and that is a safety concern. Our Public Works Director and our facilities maintenance staff have looked at that, and I know that they're also having work done on it periodically as things do fail. So that is something that's been pushed off for some years, and it might be time to do something, or if
Just
there's a bigger discussion to have with the auditorium, I don't know, but it might be time to do something.
Justin may be able to give you more insight on that.
I was just going to ask, does that project help us with the mercury?
That was the intent, to help us with the mercury, but as Director Oden said, do we want a broader scope at that building? Because you've all have toured it. You know, we have the electrical and the roof and the tuck pointing are the three, you know, listed here, but there's more work to be done. Do we want one big project there? Do we want nothing there?
We got to know what the purpose of the
Correct.
building is. We haven't addressed that.
Correct. And so these dollars are, you know, placeholders, basically, that if we decide, hey, we want to keep the building as is and just keep maintaining it, that this would get us a start on that. But if we have a different purpose in mind for it, you know, we can look into that too.
Okay? Tom?
Keep going.
Okay, so the City Hall, the first
Oh,
floor.
no, okay, not done with the auditorium. I thought we were just
No.
doing another line.
No, we'll move on.
Okay, okay. We're not going to get into that discussion tonight then, that's just,
There.
that's fine.
Well, we can.
What, the auditorium?
Yeah.
What you want to
can.
do with it? You, probably is a good time to discuss that.
I just, I just think we have to do something with the roof in the windows so it doesn't deteriorate anymore, or we will lose any opportunity to do anything with it. And we have kicked it down the road for 8 years now, that I'm aware of. But that's not, it looks like the roof's not in there, or the gutter, until 2026. Well, except we
Well,
have
the
it.
funding is already there from
Okay.
prior year committed.
Okay. Why, okay.
Well, we really need to have a talk here pretty soon on what we should do with that building. Right?
Because I can understand, you don't want to put $500,000 into it if the desire is to tear it down. But I just,
Yeah, the sentiment,
that's the bottom line.
well, yes, Audrey.
I think everyone knows where I'm at already. It's a historic building. It's
Yeah.
one of the last historic buildings we have in this community. I think this is a community discussion, also more than just at this table. I do not see us tearing that building down. I think that when you talk about uses, I think if the building was repaired, that there are things that could go on in that building, that go on other places, both in our rec department and there could be other uses. If you look at other communities, what they do and how they use some of their facilities, I think it's an opportunity for us to market downtown and to do some other things with that. And where the money comes from, there is so much historic preservation going on. We maybe missed our opportunity once already, but maybe it's time to just go back to the drawing board and look. But if that's a larger community conversation, but I do think if we are of the mindset that we need to preserve this building, then I don't know why we aren't dealing, we have money set aside, why we aren't dealing with the roof to protect it, also along with the electrical.
How do you go about researching funding for something like this?
I get information from various grant people, also the Historical Society, but the Historical Society doesn't have much funding. They're not usually the ones that do the funding for these things. Usually it's a bond request from the state government for those kind of things. And then maybe they'll give you funding out of the legacy funding. So that's the one way to do it, and then there is federal funding too. And that grant opportunity, we have missed it the last 2 years. It actually comes out in about February. And then the request is due by sometime March. And then we need letters of support for that funding that goes along with it.
Well, we've got to know what we want to do with the building.
Yes. Now, we are in our comprehensive plan project here right now, so that's probably something that we can ask Christopher to add on to his public engagement because there will be a portion or a night on facilities, I believe, or land or something like that. So if you want to speak to that, Christopher?
Administrator Valiant, you're absolutely correct. So I'll be happy to kind of start to research and think about different uses for our public facilities, and hopefully we'll see that maybe highlighted in the comprehensive plan on things to do with some of our existing buildings and finding funding sources for that for implementation too.
Audrey?
Just as a follow-up to some of the things that Administrator Valiant said, and Christopher also, I think now is the time to have a conversation with our legislators.
Yep.
We have been at the table multiple times where they have not been at the table with us, and I think if we start with them and say, you need to help us figure out how to preserve this building, both local and both at the state level and at the national level, to look for how we can preserve this. It's going on in lots of communities, but we need to start with them, and we need to ask them to support this project with that. If we get to the state and they don't sign on as support, it's not a good deal.
I won't disagree. If we could get them to come and take a tour, that might be helpful. Mike?
We talked about this before. I know that the veterans are very interested in getting that building and using it for what John's been using it for all these years. You can't keep moving that stuff. It's not gonna stay together. He's gonna have to find a building. And I've talked to him about this, and he's more than willing to sit down and talk with us and do something. But I think we're past the time. I think the veterans programs out there are there. I think we can get some help there, and I think we can get some help from private parties as well that I have talked to. But that building is nationally known for what John does. Everybody knows about what goes on in that building. Only thing is, it goes on temporarily. But what we really need to do is make that a permanent fixture.
Audrey?
Don't know that I'm very supportive of that program. However, I see that building as much more than what happens in that building for Veterans Day. Supportive of him finding a location to be able to do that, to preserve what he has, et cetera. But I see this as a year-round use for our community.
Tom?
Do we know what we actually use it for anymore, year-round? I know at one point in time, men's league basketball used it in the mornings
Still does.
in the shooting downstairs, but that was about all I remember being
What it
used for.
is right now.
Yep. You're correct, Councilmember Butterfield. The men's basketball, or basketball in general, is using it in the morning. I do believe there's some dance team practices in there throughout the school year at evening, but otherwise, there's, and John's display, obviously, for that week.
Yep.
But other than that, it's not highly used.
Okay. Audrey?
Sorry, just one more comment. I think if staff was provided the direction to use that facility and it was in a condition to be used, that there are uses for that building that we now are going to other locations to do. And I think if we're talking about uses, that's a whole completely different subject than preserving the building.
Julie?
Is it a matter of just making somebody the spearhead and to take on, whether it's reaching out to the legislators to check for the grants, just that somebody's responsible for checking into these things? Because otherwise, I think we just leave it out there. And every year, it just kind of, it's a great idea, it's just there. I mean, could we make somebody accountable to do the follow-up?
Well, could we just start with the comprehensive plan and the community outreach first? And find out just what the community wants to do with that building? And maybe there's ideas that they have for uses that we haven't thought of. And then that's part of building into the grant. Because there's, and then we'll continue following up with that. I had the grant written, and then there were other things that happened, and that was 2 years ago. So I didn't follow up with the grant aspect this year, but.
So what would you like us to do?
Well, I think right now we'll leave it on the table as committed dollars, and we'll go through the comprehensive plan and hear what the community says about the building and see what they think that we should do with the building. And then from there, then we will go after that. And see what the comprehensive plan brings. Because if the community feels that it doesn't need to be saved, then then you have another situation on your hand. But if the community has ideas and uses for it, then we need to plan to save it. And then that's when we would start looking for the grants. We will have, the legislators are on our radar already for conversation for a couple other things, so we will just add this to our list of things that we will, because we will discuss this with them right now and get it on their radar for 2025. And then that way it'll be in their hopper, because as you know, we ended up with no bond this year. It was a bonding year. We ended up with no bonding. So as they did 2 years ago, they're going to end up probably doing bonding the same time they're doing budgeting. So,
Is the council comfortable with that? Justin?
Just a couple clarifying questions. A couple years ago, when we took a look at this, I think there was a bid for demo and a bid for kind of like what the estimate was to bring that building up to all the necessary codes. Do you remember those numbers?
yes.
So, Councilmember Ross, thank you for the question. So it was a request for proposals for lead and asbestos remediation with a
Okay.
bid alternate for demolition. The city received one bid on the alternate for demolition only. The council, with staff recommendation, recommended to deny or to not move forward with that bid request. So that was after we had hired the consultant to write it, to reach out to contractors, and whether if it was a timing issue, but we did not receive any bids for the lead remediation or asbestos.
And what was the amount for demo, do you remember?
1.1, 1.2, memory,
Yeah.
if my memory is correct.
Carl?
So moving forward with that, we'd still have to do the lead remediation and asbestos removal, but nobody was interested in doing that, so what?
Well, we'd end up having to do it again. But if it was done as a project with other things, like doing the roof, the fascia, the windows, then it would be part of that project that they would have to do that.
Right.
Just as if the demo, there'd be lead and asbestos remediation too, but not to the extent that's necessary for keeping the building.
Justin?
I think I know the answer to this question, but has there been anyone from the community that's come forward that's been interested in purchasing this from the city?
No.
Okay.
So the question is the council comfortable with running with it, with the capital improvement plan review, and then after we find out what the citizenry wants to do, we can maybe make a decision. You comfortable with that? All right,
Okay.
okay?
For City Hall, we have a couple asks here. The first one would be the first floor bathroom remodels, and that would include moving partitions, fixture changes, potentially flooring, and at the same time, they'll be looking at ADA, making sure that we're up to code on the ADA. These bathrooms are fairly old, and like the door entryways and stuff are fairly narrow, so I would begin to think that there would be some potential changes on that. The second piece is the elevator upgrades, and you'll see this is split over 2 years, 2025 and 2026. There's recent code changes to the state of Minnesota. This would bring that up to code and extend that elevator's useful life for another 20-plus years, I do believe. And I know that this elevator has gotten stuck a couple times.
More than a couple.
And this will be a code requirement by the end of 2026 for the
Yes.
elevator. So that's why you're seeing a split ask.
Tom?
But that just brought up, say, 2026. If we go with the new city hall location and we, city still owns it and it's vacant, would we still be required to have that elevator in place, fixed up in 2026?
My gut response would be yes, but we can get a definite answer to that question if it is a vacant building. But if it's going to be planned to be used, I would imagine it would need to be up to code. But we can get a solid answer on that.
Yeah, we should probably look at that, because if we're gonna still use the city hall and build a new one, then, or buy a different one, then why not just remodel the current one then?
We don't have, well, we will have to remodel the current one, no matter what, after 2026, or before the end of 2026, for the code requirement. So if
But
we're
what
still
happens-
there,
If we're not there, we sell it, you know, and let the new owner do it. But I mean, if it's sitting empty, my main thing is, if it's just sitting there, not being used.
Sure.
You know, why should we have to stick that money into it if it's not being used at all?
Julie?
Again, it's an egg or the chicken. But my understanding was if we were going to buy, have a different location for the city hall, that would be demolished, and then that was going to be parking for anything that was going on at the auditorium or for the area, but then again, we're back to what's going on with the auditorium. But
what's
Audrey?
going on in City Hall?
Maybe I'm ahead, but the line for City Hall with roof repairs, just curious if we know we need roof repairs 2028 versus next year?
The best answer I can give you is we have one known leak at City Hall in one particular office. And similar to where Councilman Butterfield was going, if we know we are going to be there long-term, we would move this up as a higher priority. But if we are still in question, we just didn't, I just didn't, I shouldn't say we, I just didn't want to put everything all in one year. I wanted to spread things out, and I felt that was one that could be pushed. But I'm open to any kind of suggestions. So.
Just sooner than later, if it's a roof repair, it just seems like it might be more money by the time we get that far if we don't fix it. So I was just curious.
All right. You want to keep going?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The Civic Center has a couple $80,000 asks, and the tabs on yours, this is actually going to start on page 30. It would be under the Parks and Rec tab, and Director of Parks and Rec has included some pictures in there for the doors that are subject to be replaced and the corresponding wall. So you'll see the condition of the doors. They are in pretty poor shape. So the walls and the door are the same wall on the east side of the arena.
How long ago was that place built? I can't remember.
Civic Center?
80,
81, I believe.
81?
81 or 82, something like that.
And I'm assuming these are original doors.
I believe they are.
And then the next couple items, there's the outdoor covered ice rink. That figure is from the remaining contingency funds that was before this body a couple months ago. And then there's also a storage shed out at the Civic Center. The staff spends a lot of time moving and setting up, taking down. So this would be a shed to store things such as boards, glass, things like that out there at the Civic Center.
They downsized it a little bit, did I understand?
Yes.
Tom?
I thought Parks and Rec just put up a new shed out by Dorothy Olson, or.
That was for Dorothy Olson. This would be for Civic Arena, things such as the boards, the glasses, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
The stage. And they did downsize it because I believe last year the ask was 240,000. If I'm not mistaken. 230,000 last year.
All right. Audrey?
Just a clarification, that 156,000, that's prior years committed
Yeah.
for installation?
That's the Blue Line Center. I believe that's in the ceiling. Of
Yeah.
It's
No, I understand, but how did we get 156,000 in committed?
Got it. That was $350,000 that was reappropriated to the Civic Center roof project.
Yep.
Okay, so if we didn't insulate, we could probably use that 156,000 for now for something else?
Right.
Or
And-
in 2026, when it is on the capital improvement plan request, we could decrease by 156, because there are already some committed dollars towards that project. So council's direction.
Yep. And the blue line insulation has been put off, I would say, for at least 3 to 4 years. It's been an ask every year.
I'm fully aware of that,
Yeah.
but when I look at the needs in other areas, I'm not sure about 350,000 for installation in our second arena. So,
Justin?
It seems to me that early on in this evening, the theme seems to be that our indecision is costing us money when it comes to the auditorium in City Hall, for sure. I'm looking at some of the things that are listed here for the Civic Center, and the $120,000 for that light replacement for LED, the project that pays for itself. We're waiting again, now 3 years, 2 years, before we're going to move forward with a project that has immediate, payback for the city. I'd love to see that in next year's if possible, and at the same time, I recognize that that's not the direction we're supposed to be moving in
No,
to help
that's-
the bottom line.
No, that's good. That's good stuff.
Mayor Reese?
Yes.
I believe there's grant money in things out there to do that type of thing also. Could we ask for staff to look at what's currently available to get some money to do energy efficient kinds of things?
Is that walls at Blue Line, or is that roof, the insulation?
It's the roof,
It's the roof.
yes. It's the roof, and it's causing issues.
So do we have so much heat loss?
Yeah.
that's-
Yes. And then it's causing like humidity issues too, so that we get a lot, there's condensation and things like that happening within the building too.
Probably causing damage to structure?
Could be.
Is there mold?
I couldn't tell you that for sure.
What was the
We will
question?
find out though.
Question was, is there mold? When you have humidity, normally you're going to have mold.
Yeah.
Mayor Reese?
Yes, Audrey?
Just a question, the $3 million that's out there for the locker room addition, that was originally supposed to be part of the local option sales tax project and was not done with that. When are we done with our local option sales tax, or if the legislature does some, should we be considering putting some of these things together to do another local option sales tax?
I would say yes. By,
Because we kind of.
we're, I think by 2028, we're 4 years out? Yeah, we'd be 4 years out, I believe, before sales tax ends.
So how many years would it be left to, how many years do we have left on our local option sales tax is what I'm trying to remember.
I would say 4 and 4 is about 8. Because we just bonded in 2022. Didn't we just bond for Invest in Willmar? 2021? 2021? 2020? Was the 13-year sales tax, I believe? Does that sound correct? It was an odd number.
Yeah.
So if it was 2020, 13 years is 2030.
And if we get there before, if we get to the amount before the years, we have to quit, right?
Yes,
That's in there too, right?
yes, but that also includes some administration
Yeah.
costs over the
No.
years too. Because whatever we collect, the state also takes their cut. So It's not just what we collect totally, it's less than that, so it's still whatever we,
Might be good for our community to know that, because I see things like that $3,000 as something that we probably can't afford to do.
3
that-
million.
3 million, excuse me,
Yes.
yes, that we can't afford to do, that we'll have to wait for other funding.
Okay.
Moving on to the community center, that's that would be with a potential collaboration with the YMCA. There might be some costs associated with that in 2025. So there's $50,000, that money would come from the local option sales tax. The Dorothy Olson Aquatic
oh.
Center.
Back it up.
Yeah.
So I was just asked today where that was at, and I said, I personally am not aware that the YMCA has started a capital.
you're great.
They have?
No, they haven't.
Okay.
No,
They
you're
were going
correct.
to do a survey, and
Capital
they've
campaign.
put it off for some reason. Put off the survey until October. I talked to her the other day about it.
Okay.
She says when they're,
Their membership, because in the
Membership
summertime,
is-
their membership is down, so they wanted to make sure the numbers were up in their membership numbers. So they wanted to do that in the fall. And then at the same time, I believe they will start looking to also hire a grant or fundraiser.
Okay.
Well, again, we should, before we spend any money on there, we should find out what we're gonna be doing with the community center. Redoing the current one we do have, find a different building, go in connection with YMCA. It's not cost worthy to be spending money until we know what we're gonna be doing with the other facility.
Justin?
I just want to clarify what it is that the YMCA is waiting until October for. Is this the facility needs? Because I thought that was
They-
step one before.
It is step
And it would seem
one.
that the facility doesn't change based on the
They
membership.
need to, yeah.
numbers.
Right. That is step one. They need to do that, and they're, for some reason, putting this off until they feel that they need to have their membership numbers that are currently coming in the door up before they put out a survey. And I just thought that maybe you could just put out the survey to everybody that you have had an email for. Let everybody respond to it, but
They working on
that's how they want to
other-
conduct their survey.
So the steps that come after that facility needs assessment, have they started working on any of?
No,
groundwork
because
for
they
that?
need to have that survey first.
I would think that you should be able to, this is just my opinion, that you could do the survey and go by percentage of response of what you, to determine what you should or could do,
You're,
so.
you will be anyway.
Audrey?
Just a couple questions about the community center in general. Back to local option sales tax dollars, we have $2 million. We're talking about more like over $12 million, what we're looking at in here. I don't know how we can afford to do that and City Hall. And I don't know where the legislature will go with local option sales tax,
Don't.
but I don't know that we
But
can.
We have to have a plan, right?
No, I understand
this
that,
is
but
just
to me,
future
this is no
planning.
different a conversation than the
And-
auditorium. Can we afford to do this? I mean,
But those things that you're talking about, increasing local option sales tax in the future, that would be part of this conversation in the future also. And it would also be the conversation, and because we can't do anything with sales tax until 2026, because they are having, legislators, have a moratorium on anything for new requests for sales tax. It could be in the future that the sales tax for community centers is a totally, the way it looks, they might just put community centers as a city function and let the city decide if they want to add a local option sales tax for that function. So we have to wait till they write the law.
Okay, so what is the 50,000 for next year? What's 450 for?
It's just for
450.
planning purposes, if there is any movement with the YMCA and the commission or the council wants to continue that conversation, then we would have to start having some architectural drawings for the YMCA space. And how are we going to do that? And then also there's going to be legal work that we're going to have to do with the YMCA. How is that operation's going to go? So there's going to be more than just what it's going to look like. It's going to be what is the operations and the agreement between the city and the YMCA going to look like too.
So the 11.5 million, is that your guesstimate if we
Best
are
guess.
with the Y?
That's the best guess.
That we
Why?
will still have to do?
Yes.
Wasn't there a conversation about them doing it and us
Well,
renting from them?
It could be, but I don't.
But this is your best guesstimate?
I can't say that I can't say right now that we would even be doing that, right? So this is a placeholder and information for the council to know that you might have to spend 11.5. You might have to spend, by the time 2026 comes around and council is having this conversation for 2027, it might be 15 million, or hopefully by the end of 2025, you have a clearer direction as to what you're going to do with the community center.
When, my only comment is, in my mind, we put City Hall on hold
Okay.
to find out about the community center. And so that's the holding pattern that we are in. And so to prioritize, is it more important to our community to have a new city hall or to have a new community center? And maybe we can't do both at this time. So that's the concern I have. And yes, I understand that we are not talking about it for next year, but I see that we have several conversations that we're not going anywhere with.
I don't,
I can't disagree. I can agree. But I guess in the comprehensive plan project, I think that that's probably part of the conversation also. Community center and city hall.
go ahead, Tom.
All right, so the next up would be the Dorothy Olson Aquatic Center. The zero-depth pool slide, or the frog slide, that is I believe actually original equipment to the pool when it opened. And the fiberglass has been repaired as kids use it. The friction from life jackets and things has deteriorated a fair amount, and the person who fixed it, I believe, said it's time for replacement. I believe that Public Works Director would agree with that, and also our, but I guess this year it is holding up. It was recently replaced, so that is a potential 2026 one as well. But that would be the ask at the. Should we move on to engineering?
Anything, any questions? Go ahead, Tom.
All right, so you'll see the big ticket item would be the street improvement program, $5 million. You'll see that as a significant decrease. We have been levying for our bond payments the last few years, and as our tax rate increases and the amount of work we've done, we feel it's time to maybe slow down a little bit to a $5 million mark. And along with that, there's also a quiet zone and railroad corridor study to look at a bigger picture of the rail in the city and nearby areas.
One of the biggest things we hear back from the community, our taxes and our roads. I'm not happy with going backwards on our roads again. They are getting pretty bad. You know, I don't know where we're gonna come up with funding for it at all, but I think we have to take a really second look at what we can do more to keep up with the placement that have been going on in the roads. Everybody knows this. We hear, you know, everybody hears it all the time. We're out talking, it's taxes and roads. Taxes and roads is what the community talks about. So I think we should probably take another look at the roads.
Okay.
And not lowering it as much, you know, maybe back it off a little bit, but I think we have to take a good hard look at it again.
And I would say that you will be seeing that hard look again when the engineer comes in with the feasibility study report. So then this can be, you, council, can then adjust this number as you see during the feasibility study report, because it'll encompass what 2025 is and 2026 are.
Okay. Audrey?
Thank you. If I'm looking correctly, I see 2 lines for the Dorothy Olson Aquatic Center that don't have any figures in it.
Yeah.
The pool pumps and
32.
filters and parking lot and miscellaneous site work.
In 2025?
In
All
any
the way
year.
across.
Any year.
No, the pool filters are in 2026, 2027.
No, the,
Oh, the replace, they're, yeah. I think it's just a double. Got pool
31.
filter maintenance.
line 30,
and
32 doesn't have anything, and then line
30.
30 doesn't have it.
Right. Doesn't have any
Yep.
figures.
Right.
Engineering 41 and 45 are the same? Or like, there's no figures in any line?
I guess there's
Yep.
some above there, too,
Yeah,
in the Civic Center.
okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Because the pool
That's that
maintenance
one.
went in to replace pool pumps and filters as one line, or vice versa.
Okay.
Julie?
The only thing I will say is just bouncing off a little bit of what Tom was saying. And I remember when we talked about raising the levy, then you were very adamant about not raising the taxes. And it's that same old struggle. You can't have it both ways. If we can't repair the roads if we don't have the tax money. But there was a lot of pushback this last year. I would agree. I mean, something has to give. I mean, if they're talking about the school raising the taxes and the county raising the taxes, and people really felt like they got hit hard, I can understand why we would be looking at possibly scaling back a little bit on the roads, even though I know, and you know, how important it is to fix them, because previous councils put it on the back burner and kicked the can down the road, and now we're on that can. But last year was a tough year. And pushback for the levy and the raising of the taxes, so there's got to be a happy medium in there, and that's a start.
Just for council information, this year, the street improvement portion of our bond was 6.765 million, and that will add about $335,000 per year for taxes for 15 years. So that's 6.7 million of our street bond.
Okay.
All right.
Moving on would be the fire department, and the request there for 2025. We just purchased, or are purchasing, a new ladder truck to replace one of our ladder trucks. And the next multiple years in a row would be a request of $350,000, and then 2028 and 2029, $400,000 to replace another vehicle. So this would be setting up a reserve account, so we wouldn't have a huge expense all in one year, kind of spread that expense out over multiple years.
Any questions on fire?
Can you speak about the substation a little bit for 2027?
It's more of a placeholder right now. So it's more of a want than a need at this point. But something that the city will have to consider somewhere in the future, so it's just really just a placeholder at this point in time, just to keep that on the back burner of the city, and then if that, 2026, when you get to review the budget in the fall of 2025 and 2026, looks like that's something that's needed for 2027, then that's when we start working with trying to get public safety dollars or whatever, or bonding from the state.
Audrey?
I'm trying to think, are there certain criteria for location, for needing a substation, if you're talking about population or area served, or how do we determine that we need one?
More like areas served.
Okay.
And what is the hardest? Because right now, if our bridge goes down for some reason, getting over to the north side is going to be very difficult, because we have no other, and if there's a train in the way, we have really a issue. But, we are served on the south side fine. The north side is always questionable at some point in time. Could be a problem. So hopefully in the future years, you also will hear, we'll hear more about the National Guard site, so if that comes to fruition, that would be actually a very ideal place for a fire station. It would be already equipped and ready for fire trucks to already move in with everything that it's got already, so. And Chief Hansen really likes the idea.
Yes, Audrey?
Okay. The mobile and portable equipment replacement, we've been able to do grant dollars, and I think we've used some ARPA dollars to do some of that. That's in next year for police and fire.
I believe all of our, go ahead, Tom.
That's in this year.
Oh, it's this year.
Yep,
Thank
so
you. I'm in the wrong line.
And that
Thanks.
figure is actually
It's
a
done.
little low. The council has approved authorization by resolution this year. The police and fire have their radios ordered.
Thank you for
Yep. And
helping me.
that funding was from the public safety, is a one-time public safety dollars that
Yep.
was awarded to us in 2023.
Julie?
Okay. Line 60, training in the burn facility for $900,000. I'm guessing that's a want? And would there be a discussion about that would be like something for Ridgewater?
Yes, so that's an ongoing discussion. If memory serves correct, there was a program offered at Ridgewater College that is no longer offered anymore. I don't know the details around why it's not offered, but this would be to establish a training burn facility in Willmar to potentially partner with other agencies, but it is I would say at this point, still in discussion, whether it, just to obtain feasibility, if it's feasible or not, or if there's, other organizations would partner to help fund it, or grant opportunities, but as Administrator Valiant said, it's a placeholder at this time as we continue to evaluate and bring requests forward to the council.
Be a regional type facility.
Potentially, yes.
Yes. Tom?
When I asked the chief, Frank, last year on this, it's clearly a want. He said other local communities will come in. Nobody from the cities would really come in, you know, it's a little bit too far. This is clearly a want. I think this is something, you know, we tell Frank, we just got to take this off the table for now. Inflation's way up there. We got a lot of other problems where $900,000 could go to in the next couple of years. Instead of just kicking the can down the road, let's just be honest and say, right now, maybe come back to us in 5, 6 years with that.
Maybe that's another thing for the local option sales tax. But, and I get it, it's 2026, we'll talk about it again next year if it's still there as a placeholder or whatever. But just because Ridgewater dropped it before, doesn't mean they wouldn't take it up again. The programs change every year, but it just seems to me like that's a better fit.
My opinion is that there would be a lot more conversation that would have to come back between staff and the council before we would officially ask for this request in the
Right.
funding year.
Okay.
I also want, you know, string, you know, our fire chief along too. You know, this way he knows, okay, now I can kind of look and shift gears. We're gonna need this more than this, you know, versus this want, and go after a need. This is clearly a want. It's not something the city of Willmar really needs. We function without this for years and years and years and years. You know, I think that we owe our fire chief due respect and say, we don't see it happening in 5, 6 years. You know, keep it on the back burner. Just don't be bringing it back year after year after year. Let's get a few other things done that we need done. You know, that way we're just not kicking the can down the road. We're letting them know, move on. You keep it on the back burner. The council shouldn't have to be keeping it on the back burner, kicking it down the road.
Well, again, I think it would be a regional usage facility, and you would probably have other agencies and organizations that could step up to say, we need this for West Central Minnesota for a training center. So
Can I ask council, would you like us to just really move it out to like 2030, just so that it's in, as a reminder, coming up within the next other 5-year plan?
That would be more feasible than coming back with it every year.
So where do they train now? I know there's some
They,
places. that have-
Marshall?
Marshall does have a regional training center. I don't know how frequently they go there, but there are regional places in the state that offer these trainings as well.
I'd push it back.
Justin?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, because I remembered this conversation last time, and I agree with Councilmember Butterfield, it was a clear want, and there already is a regional facility in Marshall. I don't know where our region and Marshall's region is going to, you know, where you draw the line there, but the chief was clear that people aren't going to be coming out from the Twin Cities. And I think, again, the theme of the night, in my opinion, is that indecision costs us. I think removing it from these next 3 years is a step forward and sends a clear message to the fire department about what they should be planning for the future. Now, if they can get some grants and this becomes 100,000, they can come back to us. If there are regional partners and this becomes 100,000, it's a different story.
Audrey?
I'm just curious, the substation is out in 2027. Would it be something that should be looked at the same time as a substation, or is that not a same type of thing? At least maybe we could move it.
Well,
out
it can't
to-
be, it can't be connected to the substation. It'll be an entire separate building. Because it's going to have to be
Yeah.
quite a ways away from the substation besides, because they're going to be burning. So I don't even know how many acres they want around a burn facility. Because they need acreage to surround it with fire trucks for one thing, or whatever, They also use a burn facility not just for fire training, but they also use it for search and rescue training and they also use it for police training, too.
Thank you.
Okay. So are we going to move it?
I think that we
Move it
should
out?
move it out at least till 2030, and
I agree.
just so that it's on the radar for future council.
We'll focus more on what Willmar
Yeah.
actually needs.
All right. Tom?
The next step would be our information system department asks. There are two of them for next year. The first one would be at our civic center. There would be network equipment to be installed out there for $30,000. And then also at multiple locations such as the civic center in Robbins Island would be security cameras installed for about 50. That has been something that's been planned, and this would also help us just keep an eye on things as the world, keep an eye on things.
Changes.
Audrey?
Do we already have them at Rice Park?
They are here. We're just waiting to get them wired up.
That's
So,
what I was
yep,
thinking.
they're ready to
Right.
go. We just need to.
Wonderful.
have
So
the
it would,
company in and put 'em in.
that's the first one.
Yep, so that we're doing out of my operational budget this year. And this would really help us get a leg up on getting
On
our other
those two.
shelters and stuff surveilled. 'cause
Great. Okay.
We need it.
Supportive. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Okay, there's something on First Street by the clinic. There's a pole.
Yep.
Whose cameras is that? State, or is that the county, or is that?
So the police department has what are called flock cameras. They have, I think, a few through town that do license plate reading. And we also have a couple on Willmar Avenue, intersection with First Street and 19th, that are up there for them to use as well. So that's a separate thing. They're funding that out of some different dollars.
Okay. Is that always on the right-of-way then, on the boulevard, or? I think there was one downtown on a private that caught,
Right. There might be some private cameras along the boulevard, but yeah.
yeah,
Hagen.
Warrens.
yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yep. You're welcome.
All right. Go ahead, Tom.
Moving on to the Parks and Rec Department itself, the first
Yep.
ask there would be a Bobcat Toolcat replacement. And then the next couple lines down, there'd be a kayak paddleboard rental station. That would be in conjunction with potentially a couple outside vendors as well. So the $10,000 would be the city's portion of that. Then out at the new pinwheel softball fields out near the Civic Center would be protective netting for the softball and baseball complex out there. This would be a safety issue as games are going on. Foul balls and fly balls might come from other fields, and obviously the spectators that are not facing that direction don't see it. So this would be a safety issue as we have tournaments out there. And then below that would be on Swanson Field, our blue and our green fields. The blue does not currently have lights. It's a 90-foot baseball field, and then our green softball field does, but they are the old lights. So that would be an ask for a couple consecutive years to upgrade the lights on those fields. And then also right below that would be just fencing improvements on various fields in the Swanson fields, and that would be $50,000 per year for the foreseeable future.
Tom?
I actually did reach out to the Baseball Association when I was looking through this. And their top concern is new backstops would be nice out at Swanson, red, yellow, and green. And I've been bringing this up for the past couple of years on Green's backstop with my concerns on how the fence is curling up. They think the netting at the new complex is a want, again. It's not really needed right now. It's more of a want. And they also think that the lights on blue should be the very last on the list to get done. So they're actually putting the netting at the new park above putting lights on that blue for the uses what the Baseball Association will be using them for. But I'm in total agreement with the backstops at red, yellow, and green. That's been a huge, my concern, personal concern for 2 years from when I've noticed that the green backstop, the mesh is in very, very poor condition.
And that's not even on here, right?
I think you need to read your narrative.
Okay.
That was just going on from the lights. I just asked them what their concerns were.
That'd be part of the line 83 or page 45 in the binder.
82, 83.
Yeah,
Part of
I
the
think the
fencing,
intent was the
backstop.
fencing improvements were all encompassing. It could include the backstops
Yes.
as well. Yep.
Okay.
Might as well keep going, Tom.
Okay. We'll move on to our planning and development department. There are 2 asks for that. They're both downtown oriented. The first would be round and elliptical planters, and the second one would be downtown waste receptacles to be placed throughout downtown.
I can't help myself to make a comment on planters. I've seen downtown put in planters of different kinds over the years, and they've all been taken out and gone for years without anything, and then we put something else.
Hangers up. and-
I'm not big on. Christopher?
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, so we received a grant from the Small Cities Development Grant probably a few years back, and so those planters that you see out on the sidewalk were paid for, made happen from that grant. What we have noticed is that we need probably 16 more just to make them a permanent fixture throughout downtown, on Becker and on Litchfield. In the past, we have put out planters on the corners. Since this year, we placed those in front of municipal buildings only, so the firehouse, City Hall, you'll see them there at the auditorium, because those are more seasonal. But the concrete sidewalk planters, you'll see those year-round on both Becker and Litchfield.
A couple of questions on that. One for Justin, with permanent structures, snow removal, has that become an issue with snow removal then?
Thank you, Mr. Schultes, Councilmember Schultes. It can, and I've had discussions with Director Corbett about that, and just making sure we have enough space to maneuver around something like that, because anything out in that area is obviously going to be in the way to a certain point, but we also want to try and work together that we can come up with a plan that works for both of us and get the best of both worlds. So, yep, we're in conjunction on those.
Okay, and then a second question for both of you. Has part of the issue in the past been that who takes care of them? Like, is that something Public Works could assign somebody to just go around and water them and weed them and keep them, prune them back and whatever it takes? I mean, not to throw another thing on Public Works, but.
No, so that's a great question too. So right now, and again, we've had this conversation, and I said the same thing, that unfortunately, I cannot commit staff to watering downtown. There's enough else going on. And so this year, we were able to hire some part-time help. One particular staff member, a seasonal person, to come in and do that. And I would assume we would do that moving forward.
I believe so.
Yep.
But part of this request is to make sure that we do have permanent fixtures downtown. And so I think in the years coming, that agreement may look different between Parks and Rec and Public Works and myself, so.
Tom?
But right now, our grant is satisfied for the planters we do have, right?
Yes.
So
The-
clearly a want again, correct?
Well, it is a one, I think we have to think about the priorities too for downtown. Total, I'm asking for, what, 22.5 compared to other things. I think this is definitely a one, but it's a need if you want to create an environment for economic development downtown. And you can say the same about waste receptacles too, but right now, if you want to create a walkable downtown or more pedestrian friendly, there's no way to discard of trash. And so it is up to council's decision to how you all would like us to proceed forward, but just to give you some of the backstory and the desire for these things. This is something that's also has been called out from our downtown board. And so we do have a board of residents who volunteer their time and called out a few things that they'll like to see downtown. So.
Julie?
So about 5 or 6 years ago, probably was 10, but there was a committee, and I believe Stefan Deleski was part of that committee, a big research on the receptacles for downtown. So there was some garbage cans. I mean, there was a whole thing about the size, so that people couldn't get personal garbage in there, and what happened with all of that.
So it predates me, and I am aware of, I'm aware of the effort to have waste receptacles downtown. What I will say is that, and it's in the narrative too, in your CIP binder, but part of it is to get the right receptacles downtown. So it will have a bonnet on top of it, so you cannot put household trash bags into each receptacle. We're requesting around 20 of them to be placed throughout downtown.
So we never did put garbage cans downtown?
So my understanding, they were not the right ones. I mean,
Oh.
They were just a
probably-
big garbage
it's better.
can, so people could just throw, there was,
Just the residential ones with the top
Yeah.
two. So.
Yeah, I can speak to that. When we were downtown, they were just regular carts, and they weren't attached to anything, so people were moving them all over the place. People were filling up their garbage from their apartments in there, and it was just a nightmare. So we need something that's attached to the ground, and people can't put their big bags in.
So it is taking us some strategic planning about the placement and the right product to place downtown. But, this request is for the future of downtown and the economic growth. So I hope you all take that into consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Christopher.
So is
Yeah.
this part of Main Street, whatever they changed their name to? Or do you have a separate board?
So this is very much, downtown Willmar, formerly Main Street, is a part of planning and development. Planning and development this is definitely a planning and development effort, just to make sure that we are curating some type of space where it is more, walkable and more pleasant and enjoyable to be downtown. I will say that downtown is one of our denser or most dense neighborhoods in the city. And so both items are needed, and it's a small ask, if you're asking me. I might be biased.
Yes, it is a small ask in light of the others. Okay. Audrey?
Am I looking correctly that there's a Ford F-150 pickup for planning and development?
There are
With
still.
two figures?
There is. We have 3 vehicles, municipal vehicles, for our rental inspector, building official, and residential inspector. And those are pushed off until 2027 and 2028.
We don't have a vehicle right now.
We do.
We do, we just need to replace them.
Those were in the CIP, I think,
Those
last
are-
year. or
Last,
so.
but it's a replacement for an existing vehicle.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Back to you, Tom.
All right, we'll move on to, it's actually page 3 of your 2025 through 2029. Police department is our next department up. First item would be the secure garage. This says that we're to, and approved item from before. This would be in conjunction with the Candido County Sheriff's Office. They do have very limited indoor storage. This would be a secure storage, so it also get their vehicles, large vehicles, out of the elements. The original appropriation was $50,000, and the current estimate would be 80. So I do know that there's ongoing price verification, or a lack of a better word for that, to get a harder number. So the $50,000 is already there, ready to go. Then the next would be squad car replacement. So 2024, it was scheduled to replace 4 squad cars for $245,000, and then for 2025 would be to replace 2 squad cars for $120,000.
Tom? Well, I know Chief Police Felt isn't here, but then if you look at 2026, we're looking at $420,000.
Correct.
So,
It's-
that,
Go ahead.
that's the vehicle equipment replacement historically has been around four squads, and that is subject to change. They don't designate a certain squad, because tomorrow one could be involved in an accident or anything can happen. So they do their best judgment to replace when necessary, which vehicle as necessary, and I believe administration had conversations with the chief about that, and they were comfortable with 2 for next year.
okay.
The concern,
But my main
Yeah.
concern is,
Well-
if we could probably bump one up, 1 year, and then we're not looking at $500,000 in brand-new cars, and, kind of keeping a steady instead of a big swing.
yeah.
And then what's happening in 2029?
So the.
10 vehicles is listed in the current vehicle replacement, but it's just an ongoing
Yeah.
placeholder type sort of information. Anything past 2025 are placeholder dollars just for future.
Didn't know if we were buying a tank in 2029.
No, just 10 vehicles is scheduled. So they're just kind of placeholders for a reminder of that this is what squads are coming up.
So that secured garage, is that our amount and the county's paying half to them?
That'd be correct. The intention would be to split it with the county. Yep.
So who secures it then?
Who secures the funding?
No, the building,
Who secures the building?
yeah.
It'd be inside the law enforcement center.
Who would be in charge of it though, the county?
Just as the same right now, the county and the city both have various buildings that they use together.
Is that for evidence then, or?
No, it would be for cold storage type sort of thing. Yep, it's not heated storage or anything else like that, it's for cold storage stuff. They're
Any more
trailers and
questions on police
like
department?
that.
Otherwise, we'll move ahead to Public Works.
Okay, so the Public Works Department has a few asks for next year. The first one would be a generator, and this is located at our Public Works garage. This is, this would be a whole building generator. Also would be a security for, should that building lose power, that would be to literally open the doors up to get the plows out or to get emergency equipment out if the storm hits and there's no power. Currently, I think there is a way to manually do it or use machines, but I think this would be it needs replaced. The current generator is in poor condition. Then the next item would be a dump truck, plow truck. This is an ongoing, would like to replace one annually. The price has increased over the past few years to be outfitted with the box and the plow and all the wings and attachments, roughly $290,000. Then our zero-turn mowers that they use in the summertime, put a lot of hours on those. There's a mower in as the request. And then the line item number 123 would be a snow-go front-end loader attachment. That was originally in our capital improvement program from 2017, I believe. and that is the big snow blower that mounts on the front end loader that is used downtown when they're doing snow emergencies, as well as if there's needed areas, maybe the airport, if there's big drifts, maybe getting the nod from the Public Works Director over there, so, but that's also at the end of its useful life.
Okay.
Justin?
Can you get one more year out of it?
We've been following years.
We can always get another year out of it, but like Director Oden said, I think 17 was the initial time it first came up on the vehicle replacement.
Okay, so we've been asking you that question for a couple years now.
Correct.
Julie?
So I see that again in 2029, which is only 4 years later. So if we limped this one along for 8 or 9 years, why,
They have to start asking us early now, because they know.
yeah, because they know we'll kick it down 4 more years?
So the 29 is, so we have 2 of these blowers. So that would be an ask for replacement of the other one,
Okay.
the 29, yep.
Okay. Go ahead, Tom.
All right, the next item would be Western Interceptor Stormwater Phase 2 between Bakerfield and Willmar Avenue or South Swanson Field, $450,000 for the stormwater. Any questions on that piece?
Just, Mary's
Yes. Audrey?
location of that?
Dylan, do you know that?
Okay, just curious why they're,
It's between the two
when
fields.
there are other issues around town.
Start somewhere.
And that's not coming out of local option sales tax?
Yes, it will
Yes.
be.
That would be.
That would
Oh,
be.
okay.
That one would be.
Yes.
Yep.
You have to look on your 2025 single sheet.
Is that going to be the one right behind the truck car wash there, right before the industrial park? Or
No, I
is
think
that-
this is where we were talking about putting the nursing home, or the assisted living facility thing in that area.
It says Baker, between Baker and Swanson.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm still curious why that is a priority right now compared to other residential or other areas that have stormwater issues.
I think that's been a priority for a long time on the council's list for the local option sales tax.
Who will that help? I guess
I
for
think,
for
well,
me, I need
think we can
to,
wait until Jared can come back and answer that question for you.
okay. And I would like to see that reviewed as far as other priorities, where we've had other flooding. Since we didn't do anything there, there's nothing being used there, the water can stand there. It's
We
better
can
than
push it
someone
out
else's
if you want.
basement.
Because right now, we also are doing that feasibility study, the Kennedy side, so.
Say that
Which is
again,
an
I'm sorry.
I said we are, we have Bolton and Mink looking at the Kennedy feasibility study
Okay.
right now. So that's, when that study's done, then we can look for more, ask for more funding, more grant funding and things like that too.
Yeah.
For these things too, so that's another.
I think that
And I
one
don't know
should
if
get
this,
moved
I don't know
or
if this is
after an
going to be completely
explanation.
designed or not. I don't know if this has even been, this might just still be in the design phase too, as far as I know. I don't know if they ever have completely designed it, so that's a Jared question.
Okay.
Like I said, I know we are designing the Kennedy site so that we can then go out for grant funding on those things when we're further along.
It might be helpful to review how much we have done and how much we have left
We certainly
to do
can.
that before we make the decision.
Tom?
With the Kennedy, are we putting a pond in out there?
Can't tell you.
Okay. Because if I recall right, Rick might remember this, but where they got the baseball field, that used to be like an old gravel pit at one point in time, if I recall right. Right behind Hodat Field,
Yeah, years ago.
so. You know, I don't know how much more water that would hold, you know, 'cause when I remember it being filled up.
That's pushed out to 2028, isn't
Yeah.
What's
it?
that?
The Kennedy.
I don't even see it's on here yet.
2028.
You gotta get permission from the school first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with Garfield.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
The next items up would be for our wastewater department. The first would be the industrial BNR. This would be located, these next couple items are on page 78 and 79 of your packet. The industrial BNR would be biological nutrient removal, using biology to remove phosphorus instead of chemical. This has a money savings as well on it, using a chemical reaction. And then also the Iverson Park Lift Station design construction for $1.2 million. And then the item number 140 would be a liquid sludge trailer that should be replaced for the wastewater plant.
So that's a replacement.
Yes.
That was the trailer that was involved in the rollover earlier this year.
Okay.
Honeyway?
Yeah.
No. It's just different. Different, but the same. It's a semi-trailer truck looking.
Okay.
So that concludes the 2025 requests from the departments. So I know it's a lot of information to digest.
Okay.
So there are any other questions or clarification as we can?
Julie first and then Justin.
I know I've kind of asked this before, but, so like something like, when it comes to the wastewater treatment plant, we just have to go with, they need this $1 million piece to keep
Well-
us flushing.
That
And so we go, okay, but how, what's the oversight on that? And then,
It's through rates and the oversight of the fund itself. Because this is not, these are not tax dollars being spent here. These are enterprise fund dollars being spent.
okay,
And we are, as you know, we've now come. So these numbers here will be taken into consideration of funding and how much cash we have available each year to spend on projects like this.
okay. So when we're looking at the bottom line of 12 million and we need to cut something, I mean, that isn't usually any place we're going to go.
No.
And, okay, because then that is kind of my same thought of thinking is like just going back up again, and I had this discussion about the fire trucks.
Yep.
Big ticket item. And so, is it a pride thing to have a really nice new shiny truck? Or is it?
How'd you feel in a new officer?
Yeah.
New car.
Yeah, or now you're talking to somebody who drove the blue Ford Taurus for 14 years.
Shouldn't have done that to you.
So,
What you want to look at is the cash, so your 2025 one is what you want to look at.
Yeah.
Not necessarily this one, because it doesn't give you a complete, the 5-year one does not give you a real complete picture as to where the funding is at. So you want to look at your 2025 sheet, see where the funding is at,
Okay.
and what cash is the one that's going to, anything in the cash is the one that's going to move the needle on the tax levy. Bonding will also move the needle on the tax levy too. Because it won't move the needle on the tax levy for 2025, but it will move the needle on the tax levy for 2026, because we'll bond it in 2025. The bond payments will start coming in on 2026.
Tom? Now, this is just a couple of things I noticed that may be missing out of here. City Hall, we've been kicking in about $500,000 every year for that. I don't see that.
That's because we don't plan on spending any of it yet. We can. Can I
And then
put that in?
also, and then also would be for the citywide internet. I don't see anything in their budget, and, you know, we did go forward with that. I don't see anything, you know, pre-doing that. So, I'm just kind of wondering where the city's at, if they decide they want to push the button for this, or for both at the same time, and we have nothing here to kind of look at.
You want to answer the broadband part?
Sure, so this, what we have in front of us tonight is the capital improvement plan. So this would not include the way City Hall is structured as a debt service levy, so that is separate from the CIP. That's why it's not in your document this evening. The broadband project, yes, would be bonded for. We're not ready to have that conversation. That'll hopefully be a early 2025 conversation. But again, that's not going to be a CIP ask, because the dollars to pay for that project would come from potentially a bond.
We
So
could
it's not going to
certainly-
come from a capital
Yeah.
improvement program on this sheet. It is well worth the conversation, Councilmember Butterfield, but it's not in this document before you tonight.
We could put it on as a line item under bonding for 2025, because that's where it would be.
Yeah, well, you know, it'd be nice to kind of see
Yep.
that. And then, you know, like with the city hall too, you know, have that on there, if we're gonna be looking at buying for that, you know, in line, because I know we've been, and I'm all a little bit more for that, because, you know, the more we tuck away now, is the less we're gonna have to borrow later, and unless we borrow later, less interest we end up paying, so.
Justin?
All right, I'm looking to move the needle that we were just talking about a little bit. So, and when I look at a couple of these things, I just want to call everyone's attention to, for next year, the financing gap for 2026, for 2026, the financing gap, as we started the evening, was just a little over $1 million, but I do believe that was the $900K for the fire department, so we've almost got zero gap for next year, or 2026. Now, 2025. I'm looking at 3 possibilities that I saw, and I hope everyone saw 3 things, and then we should be done, right? First of all, the Swanson Bluefield Greenfield lights. They were asking for $100K in 2025 and $100K in 2026. I'm wondering if we just take that $100K from 2025 and push that out to 2026, when we've got a little bit less of a funding gap. The fire truck replacement reserve seems like a great idea, but jumping right into $350K when we haven't been doing that in the past seems high. I'm wondering if we bring that back a little bit. I'm going to suggest 200. And I expect a rebuttal from Councilmember O'Brien, but the quiet zone corridor, pushing that back a year as well, and saving $200K there. I think that frees up almost altogether $500,000 in the funding piece.
We've pushed that back numerous times. 2014, I brought it to this council. 2017, when I was on this, we did it here again. I can show you a list of people who want this quiet zone. And we're also doing the study at the same time. And so that's why we brought it up, because we're doing the road study at the same time. So, but 200,000 is not even going to come close to doing a full quiet zone. But it will start, and it will get some things done, along with the road, with the study that's going on. That's why they put it in there.
And I don't disagree with any of that. There's nothing in front of us right now that it wouldn't be nice to have. And I appreciate that you even used the word want when you said you can show me a list of people who want this. In my opinion, it falls under that want. The other major thing is 200K isn't even getting us started, as you said, and so this comes with a lot more dollars in the future behind it. I'd love to have it. I don't know if are there grants for that? Is that something that gets thrown into a future local option possibility?
I don't know. I don't believe there's any grants for that at all.
So I can touch on this a little bit. So the study that Councilmember O'Brien is referring to is the Safe Streets for All study that is in progress as we speak. That is planned to be wrapped up early next year, end of this year. In that study, there will be a chapter or a focus on rail and pedestrian crossings. So the goal and anticipation is being able to take portions of that study or maybe that specific chapter and start looking for grant opportunities for quiet zones, pedestrian crossings, whatever it may be at that time. If you do look at the 2024 projects, line 37, which is the you don't need, I can explain it. It's the 6th Street, it's the pedestrian bridge. There's $200,000 that was approved in 2024. If you'll notice, the line in the 25 budget and beyond also includes the Ped Bridge, quiet zones, and a corridor study. So we'd like to combine, we have the feeling, under the impression that all of these projects would tie together in some fashion, so there might be an opportunity to, like I had mentioned, once this study wraps up, to start applying for grant opportunities, but it's expensive. Quiet zones in particular are expensive, but there are rail administration grants in the works. They do, as of right now, part of the IIJA funding. They do wrap up by 2026, so we just want to make sure we've got a plan started in 2025 to apply for capital grants when they become available.
If the study wraps up in 2024 and we spend 2025 looking for grants, then we need the money in 2026 to start contributing to the projects that we're co-funding with the grants?
Potentially, yes.
We don't need $200K to apply for grants next year.
Well, it depends on,
Yeah, so one example would be a proposed corridor study with BNSF. Just to enter into that was $100,000, so we did not move forward with that. But it's just not cheap, especially when it comes to rail. But there is funding available that the council did approve in the 24 CIP, the $200,000 that we could roll forward into quiet zones, Ped Bridge, corridor study. More to come once that Safe Streets for All study wraps up end of this year.
In any sense of like, what's the total cost if we go through with all of this at the end of the day? Because again, I feel like the indecision costs us money. We're going to spend $500K just to decide that we can't spend $5 million. Like, we don't get that $500K back.
Quiet zones are very expensive, 6 to 7 figures depending on the intersection.
And we'd have to do multiple intersections.
Yeah, that's what the study would need to tell us, but they can be very expensive.
I mean, we could reduce the quiet zone just for, because this would also be spent on, I would say, the planning and designing that our engineer or whoever we hired, this would probably be the start of funding those costs.
I have some information for the council too. I got a packet that I put together that I'll give you guys before we leave here.
Is that the one we got before we started?
Did you give it to them? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Audrey?
So just a clarification, the quiet zone corridor study, we're talking about $800,000 is what you have budgeted for the next years? So if we still move ahead with checking it out, we could move that to not be in next year's, right?
We could, the council
And
could-
still be working on it.
Yes, since
Yes.
the council could just appropriate that $200,000 in 2024 to carry forward into 2025,
Yes.
instead of a new ask.
Okay, I can understand that, so. Mayor Reese?
Yes.
I also was going to comment on lights, about moving those back, but I had, my second question was about the fencing. There's $250,000 worth of fencing around the,
Can we give a line item? when you're talking?
I'm sorry, yep. Park and Rec right below the lights.
83.
Swanson
83.
Field, Bakerfield fencing improved.
There we go.
There's 250,000 spread out over the, are we in?
It's for every
desperate-
baseball park we have.
I know. Can we just push that back for a year or two?
I think it has been pushed back.
What will 50,000 get us next year?
It'll be a reserve for, so that when there is enough funding for a park to be done, then they would be able to request to use that for a specific field. It's just like the
So
fire
if
truck
we need
reserve.
to, we could cut it and maybe up to 70,000 for the next 4 years?
Certainly can.
Because you're saying 50,000 is not going to accomplish it next year anyway. Accomplish something next year.
Well, it'll be the start of building that reserve, so.
Would not pay for an entire project.
We
No.
wouldn't do anything next year.
And we
Right.
wouldn't do anything the next year after that either. We're just building it up for 4 or 5 years until we do something, correct? Okay.
But, so the orange is good?
That project is not outlined. Page 45 of your packet touches on this. The description from the director would be the phased-out project. They do one field a year until the project is completed.
You wouldn't do them all at once, you'd do one field.
Yes.
Yep, they would, yep.
If I recall right, we've kicked this can down the road, removing it 2 years in a row now. We've had it on there, pulled it off, had it on there, pulled it off.
Or did someone?
Again, this is definitely a need, but it's also gonna save city
The
money.
want.
Or, I mean, a city want, but it's definitely gonna save city money in the long run. This is just kicking the can down a little bit down the road again. And, this will just cement saying, okay, yeah, we're gonna look at, at least getting one of these ball fields done right now. And it's, like I said, blue field, very last on their list, they would like to see done. I know green gets used quite a bit for softball, that probably should be the first one, and then I think it's red and yellow that get used back over there too. But I believe the primary field out there that Parks and Rec uses, and a little bit with the Baseball Association, would be green, you know, so I think that green really needs to be moved along and get going on, and something to be done out there.
I think that would be a Rob discussion, wouldn't it?
I'm just, if it's a safety issue, then we should hear about the safety, if it's okay for now. If we're looking to prioritize, that's a question that I would have.
All right, Justin?
What kind of consensus are you all looking for from us tonight? Like, are we supposed to be making motions at this point? It seems like it can get a little tedious if we're making a motion for every, let's cut $5,000 here. Are you looking for us to agree with each other, disagree with each other when someone suggests something? Like, what's the process?
Well, go ahead.
It relates to the process, so I'm just going to ask the question before you answer. But last year, and I got the sense today that these are all staff requests, but you haven't sat down and prioritized, or have you?
Yeah, we have.
Oh, you have? Okay. Because you came back to us when we said
and we
not
also
more
wanted-
than something, a total. You came back to us with suggestions.
And we can refine this even more if you would like us to. Is there something that, I guess, on the council side, you would really like to see?
Well, if I may, Julie brought it up before. We sort of agreed last year that we couldn't raise taxes again. So if that's our direction, then what do we have to reduce this down to not have to raise taxes for CIP?
I'd actually like to see the taxes go down. You know, we've given out gifts to people. I would rather, with cost of inflation, you know, it's gonna be big, you know, and I'm big on roads, and I know there's not enough money in there, and I also know we can't take away from this, that, or the other. But I would like to see us give back to the community and have the staff go, yeah, we hear you guys' concerns. You know, I got it written down, right here. I know 2004 isn't the correct number, but 2021, we're at $6.1 million, up 3%. 2022, we were at 7.3, up 3%. 2023, we're at 9.1, up 25.6%. And I believe when 2024's came out, we were at 10.6, up 15%. And I know that got reduced a little bit. I was first thinking I'd like to be down at the 2021 numbers, but I know we can't get there. I would like to be somewhere in between 2022 and 2023, around probably about 8 million, you know.
And I
Million for what?
And I think all of that is because of the aggressive approach on the roads. And they've made the move with this proposal
All this
to make that
increase
cut
wasn't
then
off
on the roads.
All this did not go to the roads. We did not add $4 million onto the roads.
We added a lot.
Yeah, but not 4 million. But that's where I'm thinking, and coming from, I would like to, with the way inflation's going, I'd like to see our citizens be able to afford groceries and not have to worry about how they're gonna feed their kids.
I think we all would. That's a pretty basic statement.
So if we go ahead with the gas franchise fee, that'd be like 600,000?
Yeah.
Where's that money gonna go? General fund, or is it gonna be designated for something?
It's up to the council where those funds would go, but at this point, we would recommend it would go to general fund. If the council enacts or approves that ordinance.
But then that would just be a hidden tax, though, because Centerpoint Energy just isn't gonna write us a check. They're gonna be charging every
Well, they'll
individual.
write us a check, but yeah, the customers.
Gonna be paying for it. So,
But-
you know, we're just kinda
Also-
redirecting this from this.
But also, the franchise fee, everybody pays for, not just taxpayers. We have a lot of non-taxable entities that use gas that would be paying a franchise fee.
That's why we have street assessments. For the nonprofits, still have to pay. But you wouldn't have to pay if you don't have the gas.
It's true.
You just have electric or fuel oil.
Justin?
We haven't seen a budget yet, and so it's hard to know. I'm assuming that this financing gap means that that comes in under cash, coming from the budget. So it's hard to know what the goal is if we haven't seen a budget. I get that there are two, you know, there's the capital improvement plan, there's the budget. At the end of the day, it kind of comes from the same spot, right?
So the goal is that the budget, the general levy, funds the CIP. That's the goal. Last year, we did $350,000 in cash from the CIP to fund to fund the capital improvement program. We transferred $752,000 from the community investment fund to fill that gap. This year, we're at $2.5 million gap. So that's the unpopular response, I would say, at this point.
So there's no money coming in from the budget.
We are proposing to increase it to $450,000 cash.
Okay, so we have to
The
cut.
rest would either be cut or a transfer from CIF again.
And what's the balance in that account?
Community Investment Fund, it's, roughly 11 million. But we have bond payments to come out of there yet, so I'd say 10 is a safe number.
And Councilmember Fagerly's question about the
Gas franchise?
the gas franchise, thank you. Is that already planned into the budget?
It's not planned into the budget, but We've been-
So if there's
we have
450.
been using some preliminary numbers with it, but
Okay, so 450, I mean, maybe $1 million cash to support the CIP? If that goes through?
there are other needs in the budget that we still need to.
Okay.
um,
So we need to cut,
fulfill.
if we're not willing to raise taxes, which I would agree with personally, we've got to cut $2 million off the CIP.
Okay.
I've
Or
been in some
transfer from
discussions
CIP.
with Kyle and Tom and Leslie, and I think we're gonna have to see the budget to be able to make that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Julie?
Way at the beginning of the meeting, the Community Investment Fund was the one, I thought, last year, when we said we took the 752,000 out of there, that, well, weren't we told then that can't happen again because now we're below there was some percentage of what we have to have in there?
Different fund.
So
Oh.
I believe what you're speaking of is our reserve account, our reserve balance.
Okay.
How much fund balance we have to continue operations, because we only get a couple infusions of cash per year, and our audit's still wrapping up, so we don't know what our final reserve balance is for the year end 2023. But in the past, we've spent more than we've taken in deficit spending down those reserve figures.
Okay.
And the plan on the community investment fund last year and then going forward would be to step that down, or, I mean, that can obviously change at any time, but to eventually get back to 100% funded from the general fund and not use the community investment fund anymore.
Right.
Yep.
Okay,
Mayor Reese?
yes.
I think you made a good statement that we probably need to just wait right now
Yeah.
and not do anything until we see the rest of it, to see
that's-
what the next step, I think, since this was our first look at it tonight, maybe look through it
These
again.
are all
and-
building blocks.
Yeah.
And so this is, granted, your first real in-depth look to all this, and that's what we wanted to provide you. And then when we get to the budget, we will provide you more information on that building block and how that all works. And hopefully then it all comes together and what we can do. And we'll go from there, because we want to, by, of course, the 1st of September, we want to have our preliminary budget on the agenda. I think that's September 4th or something like that, the 3rd. So that our meeting in September will be moved to Tuesday. And so then you'll have that first look again, but hopefully in between there, we will have a work session on the budget also. That is the plan, that you would have a work session on the budget and maybe go line by line on the budget too.
In August.
In August. Mhm. And the only thing that sways the needle on anything is the general fund, Fund 101. All the other funds are supported by what happens in the general fund, by transfers to those other funds. And CIP is a little different animal, because we do have funds to support some of these balances.
All right. Anything else from you three? No?
No, if you have questions, please feel free to email us too. And we will be happy to research more information.
Okay, we'll wait until we have a proposed budget in front of us. Next, community pride announcements. Anybody? Tom?
Yeah, Willmar, baseball kids, 12U took first in state tournament, the MSF baseball tournament this past weekend. And then the 13 took second place in state. So it was very, very productive for our youth programs going on throughout, having a state champion and a runner-up.
All right, thanks, Tom. Julie?
I just want to give a shout out to Public Works for the last, and law enforcement, for the last couple Rockin' Robins. But Public Works having to be fluid, shift with the stage and the seating and everything else for the setup out at Robbins Island. Just, kudos, doing a great job.
Carl?
I'd also have to point out Malaya.
Yes.
The Aquatennial
Yeah.
princess, or queen of
Yes.
festival, Queen of Lakes, I guess it is. What a nice honor for Willmar and that young woman. Just a fantastic thing.
Yeah, yeah, Michaela. Audrey?
I actually was going to mention that Aquatennial Queen, Laura Swartz was, what did they say, 9 or 10 years ago? That since then, and so that was fun to see too. But if I may, I just do a shout out. Leslie and I were at the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities Conference in Waite Park, St. Joseph. You guys missed a good conference with good information, but also we had the opportunity to go to the Ledge, which is a very nice amenity for their community. And looking forward to our community maybe being able to hold more events like that. So that was good. And I don't know if Leslie has any other comments. We got good updates and.
Yeah, it was a very good conference. They did it very well between the city of St. Joseph and Wade Park. So it was a combined conference, and we're able to accommodate all of us in providing information on parks and trails, also things like that. It was really kind of fun, interesting. It's always interesting to see how they do their, encourage economic development in those spaces too, so.
I did a tour of St. Joseph, and Leslie went on the bike tour, but if you haven't been to St. Joseph for a while, they're doing a lot of revitalization in their downtown. They've got some good investors, they've got some good housing, they've got some good restaurants and good boutiques and a few breweries, and but very nice, very well kept up. They talked about also that the city has donated money just in general to help storefronts fix themselves up besides the building that with the other. And so I think it was very well worth to see. And thank you.
All right. There's nothing else. We'll take a 5-minute recess before we go into a closed session. We're going to close the meeting here and then recess for the
You got to record all this other stuff.
closed session in the back room. Back room. That sounds. This portion of the, this portion of the meeting of the city council will be closed pursuant to Minnesota statutes section 13D.05 subdivision 3C. The following real property will be discussed separately in closed session. Parcel 95-003-2350 and 95-003-2490 and 95-003-6270. I need a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Or did you want a roll call?
Voice vote is okay.
Yep.
Voice is okay? Okay. Opposed? The city council is now in closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3C. The time is 8:26 p.m. In addition to city council, also present in the closed session will be Leslie Valiant, city administrator, Renee Larson, city clerk, Kyle Box, city operations director, Christopher Corbett, planning and development director, Tom Odens, financial director. This meeting must be tape recorded. The minutes of this portion of the meeting should reflect only that a meeting was held on this agenda item with its date, time, and location, who was present at the meeting, and the purpose of the meeting. I will now call on city staff to lead discussions when we get in the back room. parcel 95,003,2350, 95,003,2490, and 95,003,6270. Members of the council, following the completion of our business, we will now go back into open session. Now I need a motion to go back into open session.
So moved.
Closed session. Oh,
Second?
yes.
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
Or did we have to close the first one?
No, you're good.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're back in open session. Now, this portion of the regular meeting of the city council will be closed pursuant to Minnesota statutes, section 13D.05, subdivision 3C. The following real property will be discussed separately in the closed session. Parcel 95-833-0520, 95-833-1600, 95-833-0160, 95-833-0240, 95-833-0250, and real property located within the Hidden Valley Estates plat. Need a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The city council is now in closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute, section 13D.05, subdivision 3C. The time is, I don't have my...
8:54.
8:54. In addition to city council, also present at the closed session are Leslie Valiant, city administrator Renee Larson, city clerk Kyle Bach, city operations director Christopher Corbett, planning and development director Tom Odens, finance director. This meeting will be tape recorded. The minutes of the portion of the meeting should reflect only that a meeting was held on this agenda item with its date, time, and location, who was present at the meeting, and purpose of the meeting. I will now call on city staff to lead discussions on those parcels.